Identity refers to the understanding of self. This can include someone's thoughts, experiences, and beliefs. Nothing has made me question identity as much as my latest read, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. If you haven't read this book, I strongly recommend you read it. The story structure is built by mysteries and revelations that just are so good, and I will never be able to recapture the feeling of reading it for the first time. Definitely read it before finishing this video. The character of Piranesi's identity is fluid and fragile, all created by his surroundings of the labyrinth filled with pillars. The book is comprised of a ton of different diary entries from our titular character, where he records the tides, statues, and birds and derives scientific meanings from them. In this world, he has created his own calendars, halls, names, and even other character names, all derived from some sort of scientific method. Throughout this, his identity remains obscure, and he passively accepts who he is based on his surroundings. The novel over time gradually gives clues that Piranesi is not who he thinks he is. As a reader, you pick up on all of these oddities, and you also pick up on the oddities of the other character that Piranesi is interacting with, funny enough, called the Other. Eventually, we find out that Piranesi's world is a lie created by the Other, challenging the foundation of Piranesi's identity. This ultimately forces him to reconcile with his true self, with the version of him that has been created through his years of isolation in the labyrinth. I read this book for the first time for the Tales and Tales book club for the February book of the month. Prior to this, I was in a little bit of a reading slump, and Piranesi single-handedly pulled me out of it, making me excited to read more. Like, I burned through this book so quick. It was so captivating. Here is how I experienced the novel for the first time, and ultimately all of my thoughts while I was doing my first read-through.
And here we go.
Piranesi has been so good. I have not been able to put it down today. It started unraveling the whole mystery that was set up in the first 50 pages. Like, you're thrown into this world and you have no clue what's going on. This character's kind of just wandering around these halls, and now you're getting all this information on how these walls were all incorporated, and I don't know, it's just been so good. And there's new characters being introduced. There's just once the mystery starts to be unraveled, it's just such a satisfying story to read, and it's just blowing my mind. You just don't know who to trust. That you're getting all these details, there's these different characters, like Piranesi, for instance, is just such an unreliable narrator, and you have these other characters and you can't tell if they're telling the truth or not, and that's just such a good little element in there. Like, you as the reader are questioning basically everything that everyone else is saying, even our narrator, and it's just starting to unravel, and it's been just so satisfying. Now, I only have a couple pages left in Piranesi's, and oh my god, it is so good. I'm at the part where the whole thing is about to flood, and there's this kind of standoff, and it's so good. Can't believe it. I have just finished the last couple pages of Piranesi's, and I am just awestruck on how well the mysteries are told in this story, and overall just how good the word choices, even these last lines, they're just so perfectly well crafted. It just builds such a surreal world and tackles true themes of isolation. It also just blends together this dichotomy between fiction and reality. The meanings of words also change throughout this book, to both Piranesi, the lead character of this book, and to the reader, who have these preconceived notion of what all of these words mean, and as the story unravels, they all change and move around and build the story. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think that this book is directly based on any Greek mythology, but it feels so much like it could be this true ancient tale. It builds this beautiful, otherworldly, ancient labyrinth that is just filled with pillars and water, and I just picture it to be So beautiful. Also, his dynamic between Piranesi and the other, where you as the reader know something very suspicious is happening throughout this entire story, but it isn't for a while. That Piranesi kind of changes your mind at certain points, and you kind of start to believe what Piranesi is believing because you kind of have this unreliable narrator. And then over time, the mystery unravels, and you realize that the other is evil. 16 is actually Raphael, who is actually good and is helping Piranesi escape. And then just the payoff of the book is just so good. The mystery aspects of this book kind of end, I would say, like 40 pages before the actual end of the book. For those last 40 pages, it's like him deciding, Piranesi or Matthew, deciding if he wants to go back to the real world. And then it kind of explores the idea of once he gets reintroduced to this world and how his new persona, Piranesi, is different of that from Matthew, who he originally was before he went to the labyrinth. It was so good, and I'm very sad that I can't have this first experience of reading this book, like, ever again. It just won't feel the same because the mystery has already been unraveled for me. What resonated with me most in Piranesi was how tightly woven together the two themes of isolation and identity are. Piranesi's isolation in the house is the catalyst that divorces him from his original identity to one deeply connected to his environment. The isolation has forced an identity formation. With no memory of his past, he is forced to create an identity from the only other person that is around and the house itself. He sees himself as a caretaker, observer, and a student. Showing off the only small remnant there is of Matthew Rose Sorensen, Piranesi is strikingly attached to the scientific process. His purpose stems from his self-sustaining jobs built from peaceful submission, not questioning his role or seeking anything beyond it. Piranesi's solitude leaves him vulnerable, with nothing externally to challenge his reality. He is controlled by isolation as he remains unaware of a past life of memories taken from him. The isolation becomes a tool of erasure. Without the contact of varying perspectives, Piranesi isn't able to challenge the reality he is given. His lack of memory rendering him impressionable, reinforcing the idea that identity isn't truly all self-generated. The most unique aspect of this book is the returning of his memories. If you remember back to the conclusion of this book, it is not like other works where all the memories return, transforming the character back and suddenly everything is clear. He instead becomes an amalgamation of his two personas. The formation of this new character kind of makes him stuck in this liminal space where he has memories of both events, and he is rediscovering all of the different connections. This book was a wonderful page turner, and I would love to read more of Susanna Clarke's work, specifically Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Now, Piranesi wasn't all dark as I'm making it sound. It was a joy to read the slower-paced life of a happy Piranesi in the beginning of the book. The character was just simply enjoying and appreciating the world around him. The book is melancholy, cozy, and exciting, all tied into one, while also talking about loneliness, our world, and our place in it. Thank you to everyone who read Piranesi with me this month for the Tales and Tales book club. Our next book for the month of March will be, drumroll everyone, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I've heard great things about this book, and I am very excited for this one. R.F. Kuang has a new book called Calabasas that'll be coming out at like the end of 2025, and I did hear someone online say that Piranesi will be kind of similar to, in the same like vein, probably not the same story as Calabasas. So yeah, it's kind of a unique comparison that I wonder if there will be actually a comparison, but